everybody to the Wild Wild West. A state that's untouchable like Elliot Ness. The track hits your eardrum like a slug to your chest. Like a vest for your Jimmy in the city of sex. We in that sunshine state where the bomb ass him be. The state where you never find a dance floor empty and pimp speed. On a mission for them greens. Lean, mean, money making machines serving fiends.
FightSaga.com presents WAWR Week radio chats with boxing scribe Joseph Herron and former prizefighter Young Billionaire.
Good afternoon, everybody. Tell you what, happy Friday to everyone. And thank you for joining us in this for this special matinee edition of WAWR Week Radio Chats. And guys, this wouldn't be an episode of WAWR Week Radio Chats without the counsel of my very dear friend, former prize fighter, and always insightful, one and only Mr. Young Billionaire, Young Bill.
Happy Friday, Joe. To the chat, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Oh, I tell you what, want to give a shout out to my brother, TBH. What's happening, my friend? Happy Friday to you. Thank you for joining us. Also, being joined at this time, the one and only Mr. IOTBA in the building.
Let's go, IO.
Friday, my dude. I'll tell you
IO.
what, and if you haven't already, right, subscribe, please go to subscribe to both of these gentlemen, their boxing channels, respectively. The Boxing Historian on YouTube, always insightful. Please go subscribe to him. And also, if you haven't heard Mr. IOTBA's new podcast, please go subscribe to both IOTBA as well as the Spit Bucket. Always great stuff. Good of you gentlemen to join us. Thank you so much, guys. In the immortal word of Jerry Reed of Smokey and the Bandit fame, we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. So let's jump right to it. I'll say this. Young Bill, I was wondering if you could help me answer this question. There was a listener on Tuesday night show when we did our interview with the always gracious, always insightful Coach Ronnie Shields. When Coach Ronnie said, yep, my guy is ready for the jump up, Jermall Charlo is ready for the leap to 168, and I think the time is perfect to fight Canelo Alvarez this year. There's nothing standing in the way of this contest. This is the perfect time to make it. And one of our listeners, Jessica Sada, once again, thank you for supporting the show and tuning in. He said this: Jermall wants no part of Canelo or Benavidez. He said, Herron, what fights are there for Jermall? More Montiel type fights? Come on, man. Ronnie is full of feces. Fred from Barbershop Racism, a pro LDBC channel, exposed the PBC Al Heyman and Jermall Charlo agenda, that he wants no risk and is okay with the pay and level of opposition. That's why there hasn't been no Jermall versus Andrade or Benavidez versus Caleb Plant or Jermall versus Benavidez. They don't want the smoke. End quote from Jessica Sada. I'll say this, Jesse, thank you for tuning in, my friend. And thank you for making that inquiry. And I promised you that we would address this in the outset of the show. Okay? So, Young Bill, would you like to actually answer this question, sir?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, when Ronnie said there's nobody else in the way of this fight, there's nothing in the way of this fight. Canelo is still a free agent. He just worked with PBC for a Caleb Plant fight, a mega event. Also, when you look at Jermall Charlo, Benavidez, and also the 168 guys, Benavidez not fighting Caleb Plant, Charlo not fighting Benavidez, it's not because these guys are ducking. It's strategic because Al Heyman wants to get Canelo into a 3-fight to 4-fight deal, as he already previously tried, and with diminishing his value, his assets. If they were to fight each other, that would be when one of them takes a loss, that would inevitably leave one guy or one opponent less. So PBC is working on lining up as many opponents as possible, and they're stable that Canelo Alvarez can fight, and each for mega fights. So he's not gonna sacrifice his strong B-sides to fight each other when he works for the fighter, and maximizing profits and maximizing value is what he does. So Charlo and Canelo is bigger than Charlo Benavidez. And even if Charlo was to lose and fought Canelo, let's say Canelo beats him, Benavidez versus Charlo is still a big fight afterwards. So why would he sacrifice their O's and put these guys and diminish their value before they get a Canelo fight when he knows that's a possibility, and he's cornering the market to give Canelo options to fight and have options to fight. So that's the reason why this is happening. It's not because these guys are scared. It's not because Coach Ronnie doesn't believe Charlo can beat Benavidez, but they're all advised by Al Haymon, and Al Haymon sees the bigger picture, and that's Canelo Alvarez. Because if you look at 147 and 154, these guys are making all the fights, but PBC guys are fighting for undisputed. Jamel Charlo, Castaño are fighting an undisputed fight at 154, a rematch. You got Errol Spence and Ugas fighting for a 3-title fight unification. And then you hear that Errol Spence wants Bud Crawford now that he's a free agent. So Al Haymon sees that as well. So 147 and 154 are mixing it up where he has the leverage. Canelo Alvarez is the biggest star in boxing, and he's trying to give him as many opponents as possible. Simple as that.
You know what, brother? That is very insightful, and you're absolutely right. Can you guys hear me right now?
I can.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. I had my mic on a different setting. But no, that is very insightful, and you are right on the money, guys. Once again, guys, ducking is a fan-driven concept that doesn't exist within the business of boxing. If you talk to or spend time with any of these individuals, these fighters, these brave souls who take punishment for our entertainment, if you talk to each individual one, if you talk to each one individually, they truly believe that they could whoop anyone's ass on any given day within their given division. They would be willing to step in the ring with Godzilla if it meant making life-changing money. Okay? That's the reality of the business of boxing. But it has to make sense, right? It has to make sense from a business perspective. Once again, if someone just throws out an offer, and we're going to talk about this later on today's show, we're going to talk about Ryan Garcia and Isaac Cruz falling apart. We see a ton of fans completely throw out the ducking moniker when it just doesn't apply. Okay? Each fighter has their own promotional entity that they're attached to, that they're obligated to, right? And each promoter has their own respective platform that they're obligated to. So if any promoter can throw out an offer, but if it doesn't make sense to that respective fighter and their agenda, then yeah, it doesn't matter. It has to make business sense for everyone involved in order for a matchup to materialize. Do you guys remember when Al Haymon was initially negotiating, right, for the Caleb Plant fight with Canelo Alvarez? Initially, he wanted Canelo Alvarez to sign a 3-fight deal to face Caleb Plant, Jermall Charlo, and David Benavidez consecutively on Fox or Showtime for a $30 million guaranteed purse for each fight, or $25 million rather. Canelo said, screw that. No, why would I want to be tied down with you for the next year and a half when I don't even know if I like doing business with you yet? So no, I like being a free agent. I don't want to be tied down to any one promoter, Eddie Hearn, you, or Bob Arum, or Oscar De La Hoya. I want to be able to pick and choose my opposition when I want it, where I want it. So Al Haymon doesn't have that leverage. He doesn't have that leverage, right? And so what's the next best thing and the next most intelligent thing he can do, right? Well, the only other thing he can do is line up as many potential opponents to try and, well, invite and encourage Canelo to work with PBC. So Young Bill is absolutely right, and he's going to join us once again to the show. Hope you have all the technical bugs ironed out, Young Bill.
Yes, sir. Sorry
Very
about that.
good.
Joe.
No problem, brother. No problem. But you were spot on, brother. That was a very insightful and very intelligent response, and I wouldn't expect anything less, my friend.
Thank you, Joe.
So I hope that provides some insight for you. Once again, guys, that's our forte. The reason why we're called War Week Radio Network is because it's an homage to the gentleman who taught us the business of boxing. And that's the late, great Hall of Fame matchmaker and promoter, Don Warwick Jargon. So that's our forte, guys. If you have any questions or any comments concerning the business end of boxing, that's our specialty. Young Bill, though, boy, he's all around, man. He can tell you anything about what happens in the ring because he's a former prize fighter. He can tell you about the business. He's the prodigy. Isn't that what you used to call him, Io? The prodigy? Tell you what, I want to give a shout out also to our brother, No Paul Boxellanos. Saludos, brother, to you. Saludos to you. Happy Friday, my friend. Also want to give a shout out to Punch Smollett. I love that moniker, brother. Thanks for joining us, Punch. Also want to give a shout out to, well, I guess we already did that. Okay, guys. So I want to give a shout out to the Don. Salute, brother. Thank you for joining us. Happy Friday to you. So Young Bill, we're going to rattle off today's syllabus. If you guys would like to follow along in today's syllabus, it's going to be in the description portion of today's show on YouTube. So just click on the description on Show More, and you can look at all the topics, guys. So, Young Bill, what do you want to start off with? Number one, who's training Anthony Joshua? Number two, the proposed Ryan Garcia versus Isaac Cruz match is dead in the water. Who's to blame? Number three, Joe Smith Jr. versus Callum Johnson is off because of COVID. Johnson testing positive for that yesterday. Number four, Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou. Is this matchup realistic? Or is this just a pipe dream to Francis as well as most MMA fans? Number five, does Demetrius Andrade defend his title against Janibek? Or does he move up in weight to face Zach Parker for the interim WBO championship at 168? Number six, Munguia versus Ballard on February 19th. Will Jaime ever step up in competition to become a middleweight world champion? And last but not least, will Frank Sanchez ever get a shot at a major world title? Why or why not? You pick it, Young Bill. This is your show. What say you, sir? Oh, I guess he's off the program once again. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's let Mr. IOTBA pick it. And that is who is training Joshua. Well, I hate to continue with the show if he's not on here. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. While we're waiting for Young Bill, because we're having technical difficulties, guys, and because it's Friday, because there's nothing that means more to me than spending a Friday afternoon with my extended boxing family. I love you guys, and I always want to thank you guys for your support. So what I'm going to do is I hope everyone has their headphones. I'm going to drop the link, guys. And if anyone wants to join us while we're waiting for Young Bill, please click on that StreamYard link so you can join the show and we can chop it up regarding all of these topics. But we're going to roll with who's training Joshua, right? Oh, God bless you, Io, man. Thank you for always being, in the immortal words of the Golden Girls, thank you for being a friend, brother. That's our homage to the late, great Betty White. But, guys, so we're going to talk about who is training Anthony Joshua, okay? We were anticipating an announcement already from Anthony Joshua, but, guys, he's still undecided. Brother TBH, welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, what's
How are you? Also want to introduce my brother, Mr. IOTBA. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. So, TBH, what are your thoughts? Okay, so once again, we've been teased, right? We've seen actually Anthony Joshua several months ago come to the States, almost like doing a tour of visiting gyms and visiting fight trainers,
right,
visiting Robert Garcia, visiting Eddie Reynoso, visiting Virgil Hunter, as well as visiting our man, Ronnie Shields. Yet we've seen him in Dubai working mitts with Floyd Mayweather Jr. He's now working on technique with Lawrence Okoli. We've seen him with several different guys. What's going on here, in your opinion? What does he do? And if he does it, boy, he'd better make his decision very quickly. Your thoughts on this, TBH?
I'm gonna let IOTBA go first.
All right, Io. What say you, sir? Who do you think Anthony Joshua is going to pick, and why is he dragging his feet on this thing? Io, can you hear me, sir?
My thing is, I would hope he will pick Ronnie Shields. Yeah, can you hear me, Joe?
Loudly and clearly. Go ahead, sir.
Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I got you, brother.
All right. I would pick Ronnie Shields if I'm Anthony Joshua, because the one thing, in my opinion, that Anthony Joshua lack is technique. And when it comes to technique and fundamentals and being in the right place and in different range and knowing how to counteract what your opponent is doing to you, I think Ronnie Shields is one of the best, if not the best, at doing that. So that's my opinion. I think he should choose Ronnie Shields. But in my opinion, when you say it's lackluster of him picking a trainer, that's going to be a major problem if I'm Anthony Joshua, because you're going up against this guy in Usyk. On my scorecards, I had it 9-3. I had Usyk dominating that fight, and not saying that Anthony Joshua wasn't there the entire fight. He was there, but Usyk clearly beat him, no debate, and it wasn't pretty for a guy like Anthony Joshua. And for him at this time to not have made a decision on who's training him, getting ready to go against a guy like Usyk, once again, I think that's could be bad for Anthony Joshua. But if I'm Anthony Joshua, I pick Ronnie Shields.
Wow, that's excellent. Excellent observation. Love your opinion. Brother TBH, before we introduce Young Bill back onto the show, what say you, brother? Why is he seemingly dragging his feet? And in your mind, what do you think he does from this point forward?
Well, first and foremost, we're like, what, 4 months out of the rematch, if I'm not mistaken?
We're about 3.5, brother. Three and a half to just 3 months out, man.
Yeah. First and foremost, I mean, that's horrible. It's freaking horrible for Anthony Joshua to be dragging his feet this long about a trainer, Mayweather, Ronnie Shields, or some other new guy. This shit's stupid. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm also gonna say this. This just shows me that psychologically the dude has what's the word for this? He's not confident, man. And he's just one of those guys. He just seemed like he's mentally. I feel like he's mentally destroyed at this point.
Wow.
I feel like I had Usyk knocking him out, and they should have stopped it in the 12th round when he was getting like 20 something unanswered punches. And they waved the towel in, and they didn't acknowledge the towel waving and whatnot. But Anthony Joshua, man, he has insecurities, and I think that and if you're gonna be switching to trainers like this, right? He was already supposed to be in the gym training for this fight like last month with Ronnie Shields.
Yep.
And the fact that he's like, I don't know what is in this man's mind. This guy talking about he wants to prove that wasn't a fluke and all this other stuff. But here it is. You're not back in the gym training with Ronnie Shields like he's supposed to. Like, bro, what this shows me is that this is spelling the beginning of the end for Anthony Joshua. And especially when you get a new trainer like Ronnie Shields or Mayweather, which I don't know how the hell Mayweather is going to help a heavy. I don't know how the hell training with Mayweather is going to help.
Yep.
A Mayweather style trainer is going to help a fucking heavyweight. I don't know how the hell that's supposed to help a heavyweight. And that's another thing too. Ronnie Shields may be the only other guy on the big stage that knows how to deal with heavyweights. Yep. And for heavyweights, man, in boxers in general, but heavyweights in particular, it takes like a good year to readjust, especially if you already been training and going through the same tendencies, training wise. It takes a year to pour all that shit into your repertoire, and even especially to retool what he has got going on. His lack of foot speed, his lack of foot movement, proper balance and placement, and his robotic mechanics, man, you can't readjust that. And I think that this to me right now shows me that he's gonna get knocked the fuck out in this fight.
Well, I tell you what, that's very insightful, and you're absolutely right. And we're gonna get Young Bill's expertise on this. He's also a prize fighter. So we're introducing once again to the show, Young Billionaire. Young Bill, are you there, sir?
Yeah, man, guys, that was awesome breakdown. But to add to what you guys were saying, AJ was saying he's going to train with Lawrence Okolie for this fight. I don't know what that entails. I know Lawrence Okolie has been rumored to be moving up to heavyweight for his next fight.
Yep.
So that and Okolie is in AJ's stable.
Yep.
I believe he's with 258.
That's right.
Also, and so AJ also has said that he wanted to shed that bodybuilder label in his last fight with Usyk.
You're absolutely right. Let me read this quote. Yes, let me read this quote, and I want to hear whatever you have left to say. I want to hear all of your insight. But once again, this supports TBH and what he just said about Anthony Joshua not being of the utmost confidence going into this scenario. Because apparently he admits that he was influenced by the heavy criticism of Tyson Fury going into this fight.
Bodybuilder.
He said, there was always this stigma. Now, once again, this is Anthony Joshua, quote, there was always this stigma that I couldn't box, that I was just a stiff bodybuilder. So I said, cool, let me practice my boxing. I tried practicing my boxing with Usyk, and it didn't work. He won 9 rounds and I won 3, but in the next fight, I'll win 4 more rounds and I will win. I will simplify it just like that. Then I will get back on the road to be an undisputed champion again. End quote. If you are brimming with confidence as the heavyweight champion, Young Bill, why the hell are you going to let someone's criticism, your British rival, influence your strategy?
You know what, Joe? This is the same guy that said when he came to America, he only came because of criticism from guys like Lennox Lewis and other great fighters from overseas before. Yep. He said he felt pressure, about his nemesis, Lennox Lewis, and he wanted to not just come over, he wanted to take over. So he didn't say we didn't coming over, we're taking over. And to add on to what BH was saying about his insecurities, that means to show me that Fury has always been in his head, and Fury, and that means if he gave credence to that might be why he acted the way he did with Deontay Wilder when Deontay Wilder was calling him stiff and slow. I think Fury and Deontay Wilder, the negative things that they were saying about AJ had gotten to his psyche. And what you said about, and what BA said about Ronnie Shields, not just being able to train heavyweights, but having a history of training elite southpaws, that would be a guy that can give him a look.
Yep.
Training a guy like Pernell Whitaker, working with other southpaws like Eberslandi Lara, Guillermo Rigondeaux, tricky, good footwork, masters of range. He might be able to look at chinks in the armor of an elite southpaw since he coached them to so much successes. So I do believe that Ronnie Shields would have been the choice, but it doesn't look that way. And that disturbs me. It doesn't seem like AJ wants to leave his backyard, Joe, to train here in America.
Just given your knowledge of inside information, would you like to clarify that from what you've heard? This seems to be the holdup in his announcement of who his chief second's going to be. Would you like to declare that at this time, Young Bill?
AJ doesn't want to leave the UK, you guys, and because of that, he wants his camp to be done there. And it's going to be hard during this pandemic with the lockdown, with the shutdown, and a guy like Ronnie or any other great trainer with a stable of fighters that have fights here in America to get these guys prepared and have to take his whole team and stop everything he's doing and bring his whole stable of fighters to the UK during a shutdown. It's not going to happen. And so it doesn't look like AJ's going to get any Ronnie Shields, any of those guys that he came to America to visit to come to the UK for that period of time at this point in time. So
wow. So there it is, guys. There's the exclusive. According to Young Bill out of Houston, Texas, in Ronnie Shields' hometown, he says, and he just got it from insider information, that Ronnie Shields more than likely will not get the assignment, nor will any proficient or prolific U.S. trainer, because he's insistent that training camp take place for the entire 3-month period in the UK. That seems, thanks for the exclusive, Young Bill. Io, is that smart for Anthony Joshua to stay in the UK, even though there are lockdowns in the UK? That means more than likely you're not going to see an American American prolific trainer, because they might be stuck there if they travel to the UK during COVID season. Io, what do you think he decides to do? Does he stay with Rob McCracken? Go ahead, Io. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. In my opinion, it looked like he's going to stay with Rob McCracken, especially with that insider information Young Bill just gave us, because we know he close to the the matter, being down there in Houston, surrounding the scene. But what this really makes me look at, Joseph, Young Bill, and TBH, is it's like Anthony Joshua want to put on the show. Why would you come and making all these visits to these training camps, and now you're not with one of these guys? Like in boxing, it's about taking risk. You got to get out your comfort zone if you want to become the fighter that you want to be. And him having his comfort zone just in the UK, that serves as a big problem to me, because what fighters and everyone from the 214 to across the pond need to understand, this is not the UK championship of the world. This is called World Championship Boxing. And in World Championship Boxing, you have to be willing to take them sacrifices to get out of your comfort zone. And I don't think Anthony Joshua willing to do that. And that's
Io, do you mean like Lennox Lewis, like the Klitschko's, like Tyson Fury, who all started when they started training in America at one time? You mean get out the comfort zone like those guys, like the other heavyweight greats from overseas?
Absolutely, Young Bill, and all the other heavyweight greats in our history that was from across the pond. They came over to the America to get better, not only to get better, but to get out of their comfort zone, and plus to get that more visibility on them, just instead of being UK fighters, because they all had it in their mind that they were trying to be great. They just weren't trying to dominate one region. They wanted to dominate the entire region. And when it comes to boxing, America is the creme de la creme of that, to turning you into that superstar fighter that you could be. As we could see, Anthony Joshua, he tried that with Andy Ruiz. He lost, so.
Very insightful stuff, IOTBH. Let me ask you, sir, does this just support everything that you were saying about Anthony Joshua possibly being, forgive my statement, a mental midget at this stage of his career? Do you think it just supports it? The fact that he's not willing to go outside of his comfort zone and train without any distraction in the U.S.?
I think. I think. Oh, I just want to. Oh no, go ahead, Mr.
No, go ahead, TBH. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, TBH.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think with everything that y'all brought out, man, Joseph, YB, and ILTBA, man, I think that it just confirms. I think what we all been thinking about this guy for a long time, that the dude has mental insecurities and, a mental midget. He's weak in the mind. He's soft, man. He's just excuse me. He's just that type of guy, man. Like, you can get under this man's skin. You can get under this man's, especially when he knows deep down in his subliminal that it's true that, you are stiff. You are robotic. You are, you have, probably overextended amount of muscle on your body that's actually hindering you from being, to being at your optimal form. And the fact that you're going through these different trainers, the dilemma over there with the lockdowns and whatnot, like he's wasted a lot of fucking time. A lot of time. It's been pretty bad. It's been pretty bad, man. And I just look at I look at Anthony Joshua. He better he better hope to knock this guy out, because Usyk is coming, and Usyk coming to take this guy out completely out of the game. And if he does, I'm gonna be honest with you. If he's this mentally weak at this stage of his career, and he's only 31, 32 or whatever. But if this happens, he might as well think he with all the money he's made up to this point, he needs to think about other options in his life at that point, because he can get severely hurt.
Yeah, this is the heavyweight division. Young Bill. And you know what? I really liked your comment earlier. There are such things as training heavyweights, and then it's a totally different thing to train the lower weight divisions. That's a completely different animal. You're a heavyweight, TBH, and Young Bill. Boy, you've been in the gym. You've been around both, all different weight divisions. In your opinion, Young Bill, what's the biggest difference, or what are the primary differences in training and working with heavyweights than working with the the lower weight divisions? From what Emmanuel Stewart told me, he said, look, heavyweight divisions, you've got to treat them with more kid gloves. Not only are they divas, but they're a pain in the ass that come with a lot of unnecessary drama. Has that been your experience, Young Bill?
Heavyweights have been divas, and also it's a lot harder to get these guys to do the things that the smaller divisions are willing to do to increase their endurance in the gym. A lot of heavyweights don't feel as though they don't take road work as seriously as other divisions. Also, when trainers have trained heavyweights, you have to train them differently because of the punch volume and also the danger present in the heavyweight division. It's one punch could change if one punch could change a fight in any division, it's the heavyweight division. So you do train these guys with a little bit more kid gloves, and you also a little bit more careful of the sparring partners you pick in the gym.
That's it. Yep.
You don't want to ruin their confidence.
That's absolutely correct. And once again, TBH is a heavyweight fighter. TBH, right. You really have to monitor that sparring and really work at a more measured pace with heavyweights, don't you?
Oh yeah, man. Let me since we're talking about that, because actually, before I go on, you said what did Emmanuel Stewart tell you about heavyweights again? Just real quick.
He said heavyweights are kind of a pain in the ass to work with. They're divas, and they come with a lot of unnecessary drama and demands, more so than all of the underweight fighters that he's worked with.
You know what? And I'm gonna tell you something, and that's why there's such a scarce. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, of course, Seattle, it may not be as big of a boxing town. It once was a long time ago, but not as it used, not as it was. But it's not as big as other places. But even up here, I'm pretty sure everybody can testify to this, right? This is the reason why you don't see as many heavyweights around. You don't see too many big guys around, and the ones you do see, they're not in shape. Most of them are not.
Yep.
A lot of them are not in shape, and I do notice that they don't take road work as serious, and you see, in the punch volume is much different. And also too, the punch volume, the road work, all that other stuff, and you do have to work with kids' gloves. Me being a big guy, and me being a guy back in the day, I got down to 195, but I was trained to be like a little guy, and I was just talking to Lamont Brewster this past week.
Layman, I love Layman, man. He's a dear friend of mine. Yep.
Oh yeah, man. He's an awesome dude, man. And he gave because I asked him, about like just what we witnessed last week. What we witnessed that heavyweight debauchery.
Of course.
And he was like, look, man, a lot of the trainers have all died off.
That's it. Yep.
And a lot of those guys have died off, and the ones that are around, they're not in the big stages.
Let me guess. Let me guess. He spoke very highly of the great Jesse Reed, didn't he?
Yeah. I think he said something about Jesse
Yep,
Reed.
Jesse Reed, a Hall of Fame badass, and one of the last great teachers of the fight game. He was amazing, man. And you know what? Yeah. And he taught Layman an awful lot throughout his career. Let me tell you, a Layman Brewster in his prime and 100% healthy would have whooped both guys last Saturday within 4 or 5 rounds. He would have smoked them like a cheap cigar. Do you remember what he did to Andrew Golota in Chicago in his home area?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he fucking destroyed that dude, man.
Within 1 round. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That was a healthy, prime Layman Brewster with Jesse Reed. And I think that was his last fight with Jesse Reed.
And, and think of this too, right? When you look at and he was just talking about like the fighters of even his era, like in the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, like there's such a different talent difference. And one thing, because I would be considered undersized in this era because I'd be 6 foot, you know what I'm saying? But I have an 80-inch reach, but I'd still be considered undersized. But the thing is though, like you saw a lot of guys back then that wasn't all this tall and whatnot, like how these guys are today. And one thing about it is a lot of these guys don't box, and they can't box on the inside. It's like all of these
it's
guys.
A lost start. It's a lost start. Yep.
It's a lost start in all the weight classes, but with heavyweights, it's almost like there ain't nobody that can box on the inside.
No, their only response to anyone like Andy Ruiz who collapses the pocket is just to wrap him up like an octopus and depend on the referee to create that much needed distance.
Right.
And it's a disgrace. Look, as a fan, nothing disrupts the flow of action like unnecessary and excessive holding.
And with no activity, because back in the old days, guys would clinch up just to throw punches in the clinch, like like back in the day, like that's a lost art.
Yep. Look, if you want to see 2 heavyweights recently, and once again, let's go back to when you brought up Layman Brewster. Guys, you want to see 2 guys bang in the pocket? Big men throwing bombs, taking punishment, but sitting in the pocket, proficiently throwing punches in combination and defending themselves. Look at Layman Brewster versus Sergey Liakovich, right? About 15 years ago. That is one of the greatest heavyweight fights we've seen in the past 20 years. Also, if you want to go back even further, look at Ronnie Shields' former heavyweight, David Tua versus Ike Ibiabuchi.
Oh, yeah.
Both men fighting in a phone booth, just throwing wicked combinations of the body and head, and both defending themselves effectively in the inside. You don't see heavyweights do that anymore. You just don't see it. I tell you what, guys, it's already 4 minutes into the show. We do have to move on. But, guys, we're going to focus now on Young Bill the rest of the show. So, guys, if you don't mind, thank you for joining us. And once again, guys, if you're listening, please go subscribe to TBH. Very insightful, as you've just heard. Go subscribe to his channel. Also, please subscribe to the always insightful Mr. IOTBA and his new podcast that just launched last week, and that's the Spit Bucket. Guys, please go. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insights. No problem. And we appreciate you hanging around, guys, if you can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it.
Shout out to my boy Io, man. I'm TBH. Talk to you, bro. Appreciate you, brother.
No
God
problem.
bless you guys. Thank you so much.
No problem, Joseph.
Okay, very good, guys. And once again, always insightful. Love chopping it up with these guys. And if we didn't have so much to cover, yeah, we'd love to keep them on, man, for the entire show. But we've got so much. So in conclusion, Young Bill, what does AJ do? What does he do? And is this enough time? And thank you, IOTB, for hanging with us, brother. It's always a pleasure. And your support means everything to us. But Young Bill, is this enough time? Especially, I mean, he hasn't even decided on a head trainer. Okay? Is this enough time to prepare for the Usyk enigma?
Absolutely not, Joe. Usyk is a master boxer, master technician. Usyk, Usyk is gonna. I believe the boxer, and we've seen in rematch history, the boxer usually does better in the rematch, round 13. That's a dangerous fight for Joshua, especially if he stays. And I believe he will. I ultimately believe he will keep Rob McCracken as his trainer, and just add in and train with Okolie. And I don't think that will be enough, Joe. I don't think that will be enough. I don't see Floyd Mayweather training him for the rest of for 3 or 4 months out in the UK.
Hell
I don't
no.
see that happen. That's not happening, Joe. That's like Don King said. The chances of that is slim to none, and Slim just left. So it's not happening. It's not happening. So I don't believe that's going to happen. So will Rob McCracken stay as his cornerman? Absolutely. And will he train with Lawrence Okolie? Absolutely. And 3 months is he should have been training over Christmas break, Joe. He should have been training since Thanksgiving break, if you want to be honest, and just working on his new technique and getting with somebody that deals with heavyweights, that knows what they see, and that's looking for one mistake in a guy like Usyk. Because if you try to break down what Usyk does well, it's too many things to see what he does well. You have to find something that you can nitpick over hours and hours of film study and see if he makes a mistake. And that's how you capitalize for Joshua. He does not have the technical ability, and as we've seen in the first fight, to just come into a new training camp and try to outbox Usyk like he said he could, and like he said he was trying to do. And that practice that he said he was doing, that practice is not making perfect, because he only gets 2 cracks at it. This ain't a sparring session, AJ. So you need somebody that's going to get you X's and O's and look at what Usyk does and look at tendencies and work on that one tendency and try to get him out of there. That's his best chance at winning. And if he keeps his cornerman, his chances of winning his rematch is slim to none.
Very insightful, brother, and it's impossible to disagree with you at this time. Yeah, if he hasn't already organized his corner, who's going to be accompanying on fight night, yeah, it's too little too late at this time. Because with 3 months left to go, how likely is it, Young Bill, that you're going to be able to devote what you've learned and commit it to muscle memory?
He's not, and it's too much. AJ's confused. Yep. He's confused, and he's insecure. Yep. So with a guy like that, you kind of have to coddle him and teach him one thing that he can work on and make it muscle memory. In the 3.5 months, he only can work on one thing and improve that one thing and hope it works. And with Rob McCracken, what weaknesses does he see in Usyk? These guys don't sound like they see him.
Oh, geez, so, it's just sad.
How do you beat this guy if you don't stick to one thing and zone and focus on that one flaw that you may see?
That's the only chance they have.
One combination, yep. And try to get him out of there, Joe. That's his best chance.
That's the only chance they have, sir. So it's highly unlikely, just like you stated. Well, all we have to say is best of luck to you, AJ. Let's hope for the best for him. Godspeed, brother, and let's hope he doesn't suffer some severe damage against one of the best technical pound-for-pound fighters in boxing, and that's the undefeated enigma that is Alexander Usyk. Best of luck to you, brother. I think the Don has the beat. He says, AJ's finished, brother.
Oh, yep. Man.
Thank you for joining us, Don. Smoking Joe, he says, evening, gentlemen. Yeah, over here, my friend, it is 2:46 Eastern Standard Time. But we want to thank you for staying up with us, Smoking Joe. God bless you, brother, for always being a part of the show. Also give a shout out to Mr. Champ Ross. Thank you for being a part of the show. He says this, Young Bill. He says, Mayweather in your corner sounds worse than hearing someone all of a sudden having Roy Jones in the corner. It doesn't end well. Truer words were never spoken. Also want to give a shout out to our brother, Toby Bartlett. Thank you so much for always supporting the program, my friend. But I tell you what, also want to give a shout out to Mr. Snoop C. He says this: if Errol Spence wins a close decision against Jordanas Ugas, I don't see him rolling the dice again with Keith Thurman. That's not even on the syllabus for today's show, but maybe we'll get into that. Thank you for joining us, Snoop C. I tell you what, so much to discuss, brother. And No Paul points out, very insightful, bro, the boxing historian. Yes, guys, he's always very insightful, as well as IOTBA. You know what, guys? Let's all subscribe to their channel if you haven't already. But I will say this. Next up on the agenda, Young Bill, what would you like to discuss? Ryan Garcia versus Isaac Cruz falling apart. Joe Smith Jr. versus Callum Johnson is off. Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou. Is that realistic? Andrade versus Janibek. Munguia versus Ballard. Frank Sanchez versus whomever. What would you like to discuss next, my friend?
Ryan Garcia, the enigma himself.
Oh, boy. Guys, we've got a soap opera that just developed on Twitter earlier today and yesterday, right? And once again, according to Golden Boy Promotions, they sent out an offer to Isaac Cruz, and according to Oscar, according to Old Goldie, he insists that Isaac Cruz turned it down, right? So once again, what's the truth? Who's really to blame? We'll get your thoughts, Young Bill, as soon as I read the quotes via Twitter. So Oscar De La Hoya said this, quote, "It's very unfortunate that Isaac Pitbull Cruz, his team turned down a very lucrative offer. More than he made with Tank, I'll tell you what." End quote, right? So Sean Gibbons saw that and said, you know what? I've got to chime in here because that's not accurate. Quote, he says this is via Sean Gibbons, the manager, right, of Isaac Cruz. He said this, "Oscar, while I understand your desperation in showing Ryan Garcia that you're actually doing something on his behalf in your role as his promoter, do you think putting out falsehoods like this will impress him?" End quote. So who's to blame? Well, I did some digging, sir. And the truth is, according to the father of Isaac Cruz, they said that, well, because of Ryan Garcia's, well, inconsistent behavior and reluctance to follow through with the fight, they didn't want to waste a huge part of their calendar year for a fight that wasn't happening. So according to the father of Isaac Cruz, once again, I found out the skinny, and you're not going to hear this anywhere else. They said they wanted a guaranteed amount of money in the case that Ryan pulls out of the fight. In the case that Ryan backs out of the fight, they wanted a guaranteed purse, whether or not, even if they didn't fight, right? According to Isaac Cruz's dad, he said Oscar wasn't willing to give that guaranteed purse in the event that Ryan had to cancel. But fans this morning are accusing Isaac Cruz of once again ducking Ryan Garcia. Young Bill, is this a reasonable request?
It is reasonable.
Cruz?
It is reasonable. We saw it with Javier Fortuna, and we saw him get injured before the Jojo Diaz fight. So that it's been a rocky year for Ryan. He hasn't had a fight this year. I mean, he fought against Luke Campbell early in 2021. But he pulled out of 2 different fights. So asking for a certain guaranteed money is not non-existent in this sport. It exists in this sport, and clauses like that do exist in these contracts to protect the fighters from, wasting money on training camp and fighters pulling out. So yeah, it's not an unreasonable request. But also in Ryan's defense, I believe Ryan and Eric Gomez from Golden Boy actually wanted to fight Isaac Cruz, considering that where there's smoke, there's fire. And it's true that Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis were rumored to be happening in the fall. So why wouldn't you want to match Ryan Garcia against a common opponent against Tank? And not just a common opponent, but a guy that comes forward, a guy that has a lot of volume, a guy that Ryan believes he could land his signature left hook and counter shots and hopefully make a better impression on the fans than Tank did. And that would create even more buzz for a Tank versus Ryan fight. So in Ryan's defense, do I believe he actually really wants to fight Pitbull Cruz? Absolutely. And do I believe Golden Boy was serious with their offer? Absolutely. But and Isaac Cruz's defense, do I believe he had the right to ask for a guaranteed, amount of a guaranteed purse or guaranteed money put to the side in case of a pullout or anything that would happen after seeing what he's seen in this type of business, of course. So I don't believe either one of them are really at fault, but I do believe Ryan Garcia, because I know a lot of people have said Ryan Garcia didn't want to fight, and Ryan Garcia is not. I don't know how true that is about wanting to fight Esau Cruz. Eric Gomez and the matchmakers at Golden Boy believe Ryan Garcia and Esau Cruz is a fight that's tailor made for Ryan Garcia's style, and they really believe Ryan Garcia can get him out of there. And Ryan Garcia believes he can get him out of there. So, and that would drum up so much interest because Esau Cruz overnight has become a way bigger name than he did before the Tank fight. So,
very insightful stuff, Young Bill. Thank you. Now I'm gonna put this up because this is a huge misconception, guys. And once again, the underlying reason is that Team Cruz wants a guaranteed amount of money if Ryan pulls out, and this just supports this. This is not a different issue. This is the genesis of this matter, right? Snoop C brings up the point, is Sean Gibbons suggesting the Ryan Garcia Esau Cruz has to happen on Showtime PBC? Yes, but the reason for that is that Oscar De La Hoya is not willing to guarantee the purse of Esau Cruz in case of a Ryan Garcia cancellation. Keep in mind, guys, it's become a standard trade practice among PBC and Tom Brown promotions, right? To have a contingency or backup plan in case of cancellation. So they know, so Sean Gibbons knows that if Ryan Garcia pulls out, Esau Cruz will still fight. Because they will just schedule someone in the co-main event who competes at 135 like
JoJo.
Either Jojo Diaz or no, I'm speaking more specifically from PBC. That's within their control. They'll schedule Rolly Romero in the undercard, right? Someone of that nature, right?
Right.
And so once again, you bring up the Sean Gibbons suggesting that the fight has to happen now in Showtime BBC, but the only reason for that is because Oscar isn't willing to guarantee that purse in the event of a Ryan Garcia absence or pullout, right? So make no mistake about it. Those are connected, guys, those two issues, okay? One is not different from the other. One is a result of Oscar not willing to guarantee that purse, right?
Right. He wants, you want to, like you said, Joe, it's value. You have to protect your asset. If you see a guy pulling out of fights, why wouldn't you want a contingency plan or a guarantee to protect you from that? I mean, it's all about protecting your fighter at the end of the day. So is Esau Cruz and his team wrong? No. Is Ryan Garcia wrong? No. So it's, did Oscar and them need to put up the money? I feel like they should. That's my opinion. But did Ryan really want to fight him? Absolutely. So like you said, neither of these guys are ducking each other.
No, not at all. And you know what? Unfortunately, what it looks like we're going to get, and this is what I was just told, Young Bill, before the program, is that more than likely on April 2nd, we're going to get the return of Ryan Garcia against former contender Mercito Hesta from the Philippines. Guys, I don't know about you, but I'm not thrilled about that matchup.
Absolutely not.
Oh, Chingao, guys. Oh, geez.
He was a prospect 6-7 years ago.
Yep. Oh, guys, and Danny Drew has the beat. Sean Gibbons met him. Funny dude. You know what, brother? I will say this. Yeah, he's a really funny guy and one of the more knowledgeable guys that you'll ever meet in this business. Most people don't realize this, but he used to be a matchmaker for Zanfer Promotions. Also, most people don't realize that it was his handiwork nurturing and cultivating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.'s career when he was working for Zanfer Promotions. He's the one who did the matchmaking and the pairing, and he's the one who, amazingly enough, brought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. to the championship, right? That's how intelligent and knowledgeable Sean Gibbons is in this business. And yes, he's a funny MF, brother. Look, and Io's got the beat here. Golden Boy should understand why they want the guaranteed money. Look, in my opinion, Golden Boy, because beggars can't be choosers at this time, they should allow Ryan Garcia to go over and compete on Showtime pay-per-view for this. Now, honestly, this isn't a pay-per-view fight, but look, if another promoter, when you don't have any TV dates, if another promoter is willing to guarantee and pay your fighters big purse, and you don't have to do shit to promote the event, and you still collect 20% off the top, if you're Golden Boy, why don't you do that, Young Bill?
I don't have an answer for it, Joe. I don't have an answer for it, but they don't want to. I just believe that they don't want to send their young asset to PBC. Even though they should, Joe. Even though they should for this one. But Oscar should just put up the guarantee purse, the guarantee money, and get Pitbull Cruz where you want him to be.
That's right.
Just give him some security, and I think I know they would take the fight.
That's right, because look, this doesn't bode well if you ultimately want Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis, because Young Bill, if you're a pain in the ass to negotiate with right now for Isaac Cruz, that doesn't really, garner much faith in negotiation. That negotiation will go well when it comes time to negotiate with their cash cow, Gervonta Davis.
With Tank, it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. So I tell you what, that's too bad. So now, guys, we're getting Ryan Garcia versus Mercito Hesta. Do you like this matchup, Young Bill?
Absolutely not, Joe. Mercito Hesta was a prospect 6-7 years ago. That's not a fight that Ryan Garcia should be taking at this time, and that's not a matchup that you're gonna want to shell out $100 a year for the zone. Well, I mean, that's not, and not even just Ryan Garcia versus Mercito Hesta. You're looking at Danny Jacobs, John Ryder. You're looking at Jaime Munguia versus D'Mitrius Ballard. These type of fights for the zone is not going to get any new casual and new hardcore fans.
Hey, we're losing you a little bit, Young Bill. Speak into the mic, sir.
I said, the calendar that the zone
just released. Guys, in case that's right, guys. Guys, in case you haven't heard, let me rattle off the calendar real quick, guys. And once again, like we've been telling you, I'm sorry, but Eddie Hearn and DAZN in the U.S. market is absolute dog shit, with the exception of one matchup. Right, February 5th, you've got Jesse Vargas versus Liam Smith. The only saving grace is what's in the co-main event. Carlos Cuadras versus Sor Rungvisai. That's going to be a war, right? The following weekend, Danny Jacobs versus Ryder? Come on. Who the hell wants to see that fight? February 19th, Jaime Munguia versus Demetrius Ballard. February 26th, the rematch, Kiko Martinez versus Josh Warrington. 27th, the following day, Lawrence Okoli versus C-Slack. March 5th. Now, this is the only great matchup in this entire schedule. Juan Francisco Estrada El Gallo versus Chocolatito Roman Gonzalez 3, the rubber match. Thank you, DAZN, for finally getting one right. March 12th, the following week, Wood versus Conlon. Okay. March 19th, the following weekend after that, Virgil Ortiz, the return of Junior, versus Michael McKinson.
Whew.
And then April 2nd, Ryan Garcia versus Mercito Hesta. How many of those, Young Bill, are going to drive subscriptions in the U.S. market?
None of those fights, Joe. None of those fights.
Yep.
Absolutely not, Joe. And this Jaime Munguia, Dimitri Ballard, this is Joe.
Yep.
And that's the thing. Like, we got to touch on that later about Jaime Munguia, Joe.
We will, sir, if time permits. We're already an hour in. But yes, when is Jaime Munguia going to step up in competition and prove his mettle in the middleweight division and fight for a major world title? And once again, Rodney Evans, thank you for joining the show. He says, what should you do if you're Demetrius Andrade? Do you leave the zone? Do you defend your title? What do you do to get a big fight name? That's a serious quandary, and we're going to touch on that as well, my friend. Thank you for joining us. We also want to thank What About Me for joining us. He says, who? Hester? Mercito Hesta from the Philippines. He was a contender, a legitimate contender at 135. Yeah, back in 2014. Chingao. It seems to be kind of a trend now among these golden boy guys competing on DAZN, fighting contenders of about 5 or 6 years ago. We just saw Zurdo Ramirez do that with Yaneski Gonzalez.
Oh, Joe.
Yep. Punch has the beat. He says, yes, I'm thinking of canceling DAZN, especially with these pay-per-view rumors. And they're not just rumors, brother. With the pricey, the days of the blank checkbook for Eddie Hearn and Golden Boy, those are long gone. If it's a pricey, big guaranteed purse that they're looking at, guys, don't be shocked. It's going to be attached to at least a $30 or $40 pay-per-view price tag. Yep. So, guys, don't be surprised. Want to thank Scott Brown for joining us. He says Pitbull is the new Luis Ortiz, no street crossing. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens, guys. And then Ayo definitely has the beat. He says, Ryan Garcia, he's a freaking soap opera. Geesh. You know what's funny, Ayo? When I read your comment, I was picturing your voice in my head. That's how influential and entertaining you are, my friend. Thank you for joining us, sir. It's funny, whenever I see the comments from Ayo, I always have to do them with his voice in my head. Oh, jeez.
Me too.
Love Ayo. Oh, geez, so entertaining. But What About Me has the beat. He says, Rung Bai say he's supposed to be mandatory for Estrada Chocolatito winner. Yes, yeah, he is. And once again, it's kind of a round robin, a tournament, if you will. The winner of this fight is definitely going to fight the winner of Cuadras versus Rung Visai.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And look, if there's any justice, these guys will finally make at least $1 million payday for these fights. These guys, they get exploited even worse than the women.
Right.
Young Bill, would you care to elaborate on that, sir?
Yeah, I mean, these guys have the highest punch volume, the highest punch count, some of the best technicians in the sport. They're making $500,000 and under. Chocolatito and Estrada didn't make, neither one of them made over $500,000 in that brutal rematch they just had in March. And then you think about it, the first fight, they made the same amount, if not less. So it's an injustice for Chocolatito to have been a pound for pound guy and Estrada to be in that same category. And you have these guys making under $1 million. And you talking about some of the most wonderful, technical, brutal fights that you can ever see. Fight of the year candidates getting under $500,000 is really, to me, is highway robbery. Is an injustice to these guys and their talent.
Yep, it's disgusting. And once again, there's no excuse for it, guys. Okay, these guys put together an elite level product that combines entertainment with the highest level of skill in the sport. Okay, and they still don't get their just due. Guys like Nonito Donaire, you know what he made in his last fight?
$300,000.
That's it. You've got the beat. So Rodney Evans asks you this, Young Bill. He says, does this fight with Mercito Hesta even help Ryan Garcia get ready for an A-level opponent?
Absolutely not. Maybe 6-7 years ago, brother.
Oh, Chingao. Guys, this is how long ago it's been since Mercito Hesta has been a legitimate contender. Okay, when I first met him, I was doing publicist work for him when he was working and fighting under the War Week radio promotional banner. Don Chargan was his first promoter in the States. That's how long it's been since he's been a legitimate contender, right? And once again, guys, it's going to get worse before it gets any better, because just like TBH is stating, pay cut coming for fighters, and it starts this year. Look, the days of the inflated purse are long gone, guys. So once again, we're going to see fighters reluctant because they're going to be offered their realistic market value, not these inflated purses. So it's going to be very difficult this year, guys, to make the best matchups a reality. Just brace yourselves for it, okay? Want to thank Brother IB for joining the show. Welcome to the show, sir. Always a pleasure sharing the air with you, as well as doing shots with you. Break out the patron tonight, brother. So, Young Bill, what would you like to discuss now? Let's go through the syllabus once again. Joe Smith Jr. Who is he fighting this evening? Once again, Callum Johnson coming down with COVID, having to back out of this fight. Is this going to be a problem from this point forward for the rest of the year? But we know Joe Smith Jr. is going to be taking on someone had the beat earlier. Let's see. Let's find the opponent. Guys, give me a second.
I just want to say this, Joe. I don't know I don't know what type of guy and contender they're going to get to take Joe Smith fight on a 1.5 week notice when you got a guy that punches like that. Joe,
It's Richard Rivera, right? And from my knowledge, thank you for providing the name, Punch. From my knowledge, I don't even know if this is going to be a title fight. I don't know if this is someone that they're going to sanction, that this is going to be a WBO title defense. I don't know if it's someone who's ranked high enough. Let me look up Richard Rivera real quick while you share your thoughts on, is this what we have to look forward to for 2022? COVID tearing up these matchups.
If last year was any indication, and the year before, last year Burchelt got COVID, Teofimo got COVID, Fury got COVID. The big names in the sport were getting COVID, Joe. And this Omicron is a little bit more infectious. So, from what we look for, what we look forward to it. Is that something that we have to just adjust to as fight fans? Absolutely. It sucks because Callum Johnson and Joe Smith was a great action fight. A great matchup, a fan-friendly fight as well. Joe Smith, was a power puncher. You got Callum Johnson, the same guy who dropped Beterbiev in their matchup. So you got two power punchers that come forward. It would have been an amazing fight to see. I'm bummed out about it, but
okay. You know what, brother? Okay, you know what? Top Rank. I don't know how they pulled this one out of their ass, right? But this is who Richard Rivera is, and we're going to introduce everyone to Richard Rivera right now, aka Popeye the Sailor Man. He comes into the ring next Saturday at age 31. Fights out of the orthodox stance, stands 6 feet tall, even in the center of the ring, from Hartford, Connecticut. Currently the number 21 ranked cruiser in the world. He's currently undefeated, 20-0, with 15 big wins coming by way of knockout. That's not bad, but
absolutely not.
Has he ever fought anyone on the level of a Joe Smith Jr.? What are you looking forward to here? I tell you what, though, credit to Brad Goodman and Bruce Trampler, once again, the best matchmakers in the business, pulling a rabbit out of their hat. We'll see what happens, but Young Bill, your final thoughts on this, sir?
The fact that they pulled out an undefeated guy, a power punching guy that seems to come forward and seems to, want to come to fight. Brad Goodman and them are some of the best matchmakers in the game. I don't know how they found this guy. I don't know how they got him to agree in such short notice. But I just want to know if it's a title fight. I just want to know if it's going to be sanctioned by the WBO.
That's what I don't know yet. And because he's ranked 21, this very well may be an exception, right?
Okay.
But let me ask you this. Young Bill. If Joe Smith Jr., and once again, there are never gimmies. There are no guarantees in this fight game. Anyone ranked in the top 50 can pull off the upset on any given evening in the division. These are world-class fighters, right?
Right.
So if Joe Smith Jr. is successful next Saturday night, will we see Joe Smith Jr. take on Arthur Beterbiev later this year in a unification bout?
Joe, if you got to ask me that, you probably know the answer. No.
Damn it.
What's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. That John Ryder, Danny Jacobs got a fight. If Danny Jacobs is successful, there is rumors that Danny Jacobs will move up to 75 and face Joe Smith later this year. They're doing something similar to what a lot of guys do. He doesn't have to fight Arthur Beterbiev and Joe DeGuardia, or I forgot how you say his name from
it's Joe DeGuardia of Star
Joe
Boxing.
DeGuardia.
Yep.
Joe DeGuardia. He's protecting his asset and protecting his ticket seller in Joe Smith.
Can't blame him.
The fans there love him. The blue collar fan base in the East Coast love Joe Smith. They love his story. He's packing out arenas. He's fighting. He's a hard puncher. He's a resilient guy, and the fans love him. They're protecting their ticket sellers. They're not going to take that fight with Beterbiev unless they absolutely see fit or until they see slippage in Beterbiev, and more slippage than they saw against that Marcus Brown fight. That's not enough slippage yet, Joe.
Hell no, not by a long shot. He still bludgeoned Marcus Brown and put his ass, just beat him into submission. Honestly, I felt sorry for Marcus Brown, even after all the jive he was talking before the fight, right?
Right.
I genuinely felt bad for him because he didn't want any more. What happens, Young Bill, when you see a fighter get up at 10? What happens? What does that mean?
He didn't want any more.
That's it. Yep.
He quit.
Yep, he quit. And you know what? I can't blame him. I can't fault him for that because Arthur Beterbiev, well, that is a hard man to step in the ring with. So are we going to see Joe Smith Jr. versus Arthur Beterbiev? Young Bill, I think you're right on the money. I think Joe DeGuardia is going to stick him in the ring with the winner of Danny Jacobs and John Ryder. If it's Danny Jacobs, and that's no guarantee. Look, if John Ryder wins, okay, you very well may see Joe Smith Jr. versus Arthur Beterbiev on ESPN. Because let's just face it, the only reason why Joe DeGuardia wants to pair up Joe Smith Jr. versus Danny Jacobs, that is a huge main event in the New York tri-state area. Right?
Yes. Absolutely.
And there it is, guys. So once again, this is entirely up to Danny Jacobs on who faces Joe Smith Jr. later this year. But I tell you what, let's just hope for the best, and let's see what the Hartford, Connecticut native has in store for Joe Smith Jr. Once again, just like Richard Rivera, Joe Smith Jr. is taking this on short notice. If this guy is a dangerous puncher, we'll see what happens. This is very intriguing. Now, I'm just happy that we're going through with the main event, right? So thanks to Top Rank, thanks to Brad Goodman, Bruce Trampler, and you know what? I wouldn't doubt it if Iceman John Scully is the guy who found this guy for Bruce and Bob. Keep in mind, he's from Hartford, Connecticut also. Don't be surprised if he trains this cat, right? We'll find out on fight night. I have a feeling, though, that, Iceman John Scully is the gentleman who found this guy for those matchmakers. Thank you, Ice. Thank you, Iceman. I tell you what, let's move on, guys, because we're already an hour and 15 minutes in the show, and we have so much to discuss. Do you want to talk about Munguia versus Ballard? When is Munguia going to step up in competition? Let's go ahead and address that right now, and then after that, let's get your 5 fights on your wish list, and then we'll talk about Andrade Janibek before we exit the show, okay? So once again, guys, it was just announced by DAZN on their schedule that Jaime Munguia, sorry, fight fans, if you were hoping that he was going to step in the ring with one of the major title holders in the first half of 2022, well, it's not going to happen, guys. Jaime Munguia is going to be stepping in the ring with D'Mitrius Ballard, who was originally scheduled last year as one of his opponents, but had to back out because he tested positive for COVID. So now it's being rescheduled. But Young Bill, I understand that Jaime Munguia is only 25. But why are they seemingly dragging their feet with this kid? Why are they seemingly dragging their feet with this kid? Is he ever going to step up in competition? And what is Golden Boy waiting for?
Well, Joe, Eric Gomez is one, and you know your guys at Golden Boy, you know them very well. They know they're some of the best in matchmaking. They were taught by your man Don Chargan, the great Don Chargan, so they know exactly how to match this guy. And there's obviously a new wrinkle that they want to see from him before they put him in a major fight with an Andrade, with the Jamal Charlo, with the Triple G. And until they see that wrinkle, they're not going to mess with their ticket seller. This guy is a massive ticket seller. This guy has the fan base. The guy had the fan base. He has everything that you would look for in a guy. So they're not going to risk their number one. You protect your ticket sellers at all costs in the business of boxing. And until you see that wrinkle, and it's kind of similar, eerily similar to Canelo Alvarez before he fought Triple G.
That is very insightful, brother. Keep going, sir.
He was fighting at a 155-pound catch weight and different fighters here and there. He had the middleweight championship and relinquished it. The WBC championship, relinquished it after he beat Miguel Cotto. Relinquished it. And you know, Eric Gomez and these guys were matching him with fights that could build him in that new wrinkle. And when they saw fit, they put him in there with Triple G. Once they felt like Canelo was ready, because he was their ticket seller. And you don't sacrifice your ticket sellers unless you have to. And so until Jaime Munguia works on that new wrinkle and keeps incorporating new things into his game, he won't step up in competition anytime soon.
You know, that is very insightful. That's exactly how Eric Gomez and Roberto Diaz actually work. They know what they see in the ring. So, Young Bill, please provide that insight if you could. What do you think it is that Eric Gomez and Roberto Diaz sees, or what did they see in his last fight against Gabe Rosado? Did you see anything that Jaime Munguia needs to work on before moving up in weight, sir? Or not moving up in weight, but taking on the beasts of the division. My apologies. What was that new wrinkle that he needs to incorporate before stepping up?
To be able to effectively cut the ring off, to work on his defense and going backwards, his footwork, his lateral footwork, his ability to counter the jab. But Jaime Munguia, as good as he is basic things that they want to see him improve on, especially being defensively sound as he's being an effective aggressor. They don't want him to do, and they also want him to work a lot on his footwork, especially in and out of his attack. And I think Jaime Munguia has not. And also, Joe, he drops his hands a lot in the ring. So it's just certain things that they don't want to put him in there with a guy like Golovkin until they see him start adding those new wrinkles to his game as far as picking those things up and creating and fixing some of those habits that he has in there.
That's right. That's very insightful. Let me tell you what I saw as well, Young Bill. From what I saw, right? Think about how much and how often Gabe Rosado was countering him effectively as he was closing the distance, just like you pointed out. In my opinion, that's the primary wrinkle that they're waiting for him to add to his arsenal, right? Because let's take a look at what Snoop C said. Golden Boy is waiting for Jamal, D'Mitrius, Andrade to vacate and for Triple G to get older. That's right on the money. And do you know why? Because once again, he's not doing anything to disrupt the timing and rhythm of a counter-punching opponent. He's walking straight in, and he's not working behind an intelligent jab, using the stutter step, using feints. Did you see one feint during that Gabe Rosado fight, Young Bill?
I didn't see any feints or change of levels or proper head movement. Yep. And I seen him on the center line the whole fight, Joe.
That's it. So, guys, look, if Gabe Rosado was timing him and countering him effectively and engaged in a war with Jaime Munguia, once again, it was a Fight of the Year candidate last year, guys. So if he's doing that to him, someone who's on the back nine approaching a retirement, what do you think would happen if he fought Jermall Charlo, Gennady Golovkin, Demetrius Andrade? What do you think the outcome would be there, brother?
3 L's and a biscuit.
That is spot on. So that is very insightful, Young Bill. You are right on the money. They're waiting to see, just like they did with Canelo. They're waiting to see him improve in that area, or else they won't step him up in competition because they know he'll lose. They want to see that improvement, or else he's all but done. And keep in mind, Jaime Munguia is one of their, he's only 25, so they've got time on their side, right?
Right.
And he is one of their best young fighters in that entire roster, and he's increasing his market value with each outing because he's such a fan-friendly fighter. He's so much fun to watch, right?
Exactly.
He's all action, heavy-handed, great chin, and his fan base is growing. So they know that he's got a huge upside, but he has to be handled with kid gloves at this time until they see those improvements. Very well done, Young Bill. Let's move on, sir. Let's introduce, because we're running out of time at the 122 mark of the show, let's introduce now your wish list for 2022, the new year. What 5 fights would you like to see happen?
Absolutely.
But probably won't. Hold on. Before we move forward, hold on. I got to read this further. I got to listen to this, Young Bill. Jaime Munguia would continuously smash Charlo in the gloves with his face.
Oh.
that is spot on. That is spot on. What about me? Excellent. You know what? I'm going to star that comment. That's what I'm going to do, brother, because that was awesome. All right. I'm sorry. So going back to your list, what is your 5 fights that you would love to see in 2022, but more than likely won't happen? And please educate us as to why it won't happen, sir.
Gervonta Tank Davis versus Lomachenko.
Wow.
That's a fight we've been wanting to happen that didn't happen for 4 or 5 years now. So what am I to think that is going to happen when Floyd said we're working in-house? We don't have no reason to fight Lomachenko. Tank is young. Our guy doesn't need to fight him. And he's absolutely correct. They don't need to fight him. So they're not going to fight him. But that's a fight that I always wanted to see. And I still want to see because Lomachenko still looks great. And you looking at the style matchup, you have a master technician against an amazing puncher with great footwork, great hand speed, and Tank Davis. 2 southpaws. Oh, man. Whew. Joe. One of the best fights you could actually make on paper in the 135 division.
Absolutely, brother. But yeah, just like you stated, it more than likely won't happen. Look, if you're having a hard time making Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, what is the likelihood of you being able to make Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis?
Not going to happen.
Nope. So what's number 2 there, Young Bill?
Demetrius Andrade versus Jermall Charlo.
Oh. And obviously, why won't that happen, sir?
Well, Jermall Charlo is there. Al Heyman is not putting him in with Demetrius Andrade, not putting him in with Benavidez, as we discussed earlier in the show. Because as long as Canelo's name is on the horizon, and it's a possibility you can get a Canelo fight for Jermall Charlo, you won't ever see Demetrius Andrade and Jermall Charlo mix it up. That's just not going to happen. And also the history that they have when Andre was signed to fight Jermell Charlo years ago when Jermell was still training with Ronnie Shields. We know how that happened. And Ronnie Shields said they would never work with the guy, but it's even bigger than that. Jermall Charlo is a potential opponent for Canelo Alvarez. Demetrius Andrade never will mix it up with Jermall Charlo until that happens.
That is an excellent point, brother. And LaRon has the beat here. Thank you for sticking with us, LaRon. He says, we might as well consider Tank versus Loma a fantasy fight because it'll never happen. Absolutely right on the money, brother. Snoop C also says, will Golden Boy be granted a larger budget to work with so they can produce more matchups? Well, once again, if you're asking the question, Snoop C, you already know the answer. Let me ask you, what do you think, sir? And I'm going to rattle off the first Golden Boy matchups that are made for the zone calendar, and you tell me what you think. Jaime Munguia versus D'Mitrius Ballard. Virgil Ortiz versus Michael McKinson. Ryan Garcia versus Masito Hesta. Now, Snoop C, do you think they've been granted a larger budget by those 3 fights? You know the answer, my friend. Thank you for joining us, Snoop C. Always love your insight, brother. Thank you for hanging with us on this show. He knew it. He knew it. He was just trying to prove a point. He already knows. So what is your number 3 fight, Young Bill, on the New Year wish list, sir?
Arthur Beterbiev versus Zurdo Ramirez.
Oh. Damn it. You mean that's probably not going to happen, brother?
I just love the style matchup, Joe. And because everybody's saying people are ducking Zurdo, I want to see Zurdo in tough with a guy like Arthur Beterbiev. And we know, and like you said, Joe, they're not going to make it unless they have to. Arthur Beterbiev is not going to get any of those fights unless it has to be done. Zurdo has fought 43 fights. If he's not ready, then he will never be. So that's why I want to see that fight so bad. I want to see Zurdo versus Beterbiev at 175.
Yep, it's the irresistible force against the immovable object. Ooh,
yes.
You know what? I'm sorry, man, but if Zurdo Ramirez takes as much punishment as he did against Yaneski Gonzalez in his last fight, well, this one's going to be over quickly, my friend. I'm sorry. Zurdo has a very good beard, and he's a tough dude.
Right.
But I'm sorry, if he gets hurt that often against Arthur Beterbiev and has that many lapses in defense,
right,
hang it up, brother. This one's not going past the 7th. And Punch Moulet has the beat. He says, Young Bill hitting on the mark. He often does, brother. It's why we value his insight on this show. Thank you for hanging with us, Punch. You're also a very insightful gentleman. Thank you for hanging with us, brother, and being a part of the program. Always appreciate your support. So here we are at the tail end of your wish list, Young Bill. What's the next fight on your wish list, sir?
Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. When Joshua.
Dude, Joe, I love that.
Hey, Joe, when Joshua loses again because he's staying with McCracken and he's staying in his comfort zone and he's training with Okoli, and when he loses again, if he does, and Wilder was considering retirement, the only way these guys are going to get the money these guys want is to fight each other. Once Wilder's not going to get paid like he did against anybody else unless he fights a guy like Joshua, and he's not fighting Fury again. So, and this is a fight that we were all calling for when these guys were undefeated. So, yeah, make it happen and ride off in the sunset for Joshua and Wilder, 2022.
You know what, Young Bill? Well, you've got a future as a matchmaker, brother, because that just makes all the sense in the world. And let me tell you, because of that prospect, sir, I may actually secretly and silently be pulling for Alexander Usyk when they fight in April, brother. I'm not joking, man. That is awesome. That's the top of my wish list right there. And look, you got the stamp of approval from LeRon 9817. Jeez, but here comes the hard reality of the situation by our brother Snoop C. He's got the beat. He says, look, brother, there's a higher likelihood of seeing Deontay Wilder versus the winner of Andy Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz winner on pay-per-view.
Exactly.
Sad but true. But hey, guys, we can always hold on to hope.
Right. and Joe, this is the one that everybody's been waiting for. This is the one
Here
that's the most likely.
Hold on. Drum roll, please. What's number 5, the most anticipated fight on your 2022 wish list that we will not see?
Well, Joe, this is the one that I hope we see. And this is the one that I have not gotten any hope that we will see over the last 3 or 4 years. And this has, my man Correa would say, 4 years. My boy,
I love Io, man.
At 147.
I'm sorry. What was that again, sir?
Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence at 147 pounds.
Oh, say it ain't so, brother. We have to
Undisputed.
see that this year,
We
man.
have to see it. We have to see it. We're not going. If it doesn't happen this year, it's not going to happen.
Chingao, dude. You know what? I fear that you're right, my friend. I fear that you're right. You know what? Look, guys, in my opinion, Terrence Crawford's stubbornness and his expectation of receiving those big purses and being the A side on the top rank side of the street is going to hinder the likelihood of this fight happening. Once again, this is the guy who believes he's a bigger attraction than he is. He's a guy who believes he's the A side here, the number one fighter in the welterweight division, without a doubt in his mind. And he wants to test the free agency market. How's that going to fare for him, young Bill? How's that going to work out for him, sir, in 2022?
I think humility will hit him real quick, Joe. PBC already said he's a little too expensive for their taste, and Mr. Brown from that works for PBC, he said
Brown.
that Tom Brown, he said that that Bud Crawford was not properly built into a pay-per-view attraction. So that lets me know that these guys don't like what the money that comes with Terrence Crawford and his expectations, and they're seem to be steadfast in their leverage and holding on to their leverage that they have with Errol Spence in this Ugas fight. The winner will have 3 titles. It would be hard to see what Bud Crawford has on the horizon if he does not go with PBC.
You know what, brother? I hate you, Bill. I hate you, young Bill. You're always right, man. You're very insightful, and I think you're right in this scenario. And Rodney Evans has the beat. Thank you for sticking with us this entire time, sir. He says this. Hold on, let's see. Where is it? Nope. He says this. Damn. Oh, dude. Yep. I mirror that sentiment, Rodney. Thank you for sticking with us, brother. Yeah, I don't see it happening, man. If he doesn't play ball with Al Haymon and give him options on his next 4 or 5 fights, I do not see it happening. I'm with you, young Bill. Well, we can all dream. Yep, LaRon agrees. Spence versus Bud not happening. Now, Snoop is the, he sees light at the end of the tunnel. What do you think of this, young Bill? Can Al Haymon construct a 2-fight deal that includes Keith Thurman and then an Errol Spence undisputed unification bout for Terrence Crawford?
Yeah, Snoop. See, but we got to get Bud to kind of bite the bullet here. Bud has grown accustomed to getting inflated purses, and I'm not saying that Bud is not a great fighter, but his market value determines on how many butts you put in the seat and how much profit you make as entertaining folks. And this is the entertainment business, and this is something that has come with a lot of Terrence Crawford fights. They have not been financially advantageous for the promoters involved. So if Bud understands that and Bud, bites the bullet and humbles himself a little bit, he will get the fights he's looking for. I do believe that, but without giving Al Haymon options and the leverage in this situation, he can kiss the Errol Spence fight goodbye.
Yep, that's it. And Snoop C, there's a reason why I stated 4 or 5 fights, right? Look, if you've got the marquee value of a guy like Manny Pacquiao, yeah, you can get away with just giving a guy like Al Haymon options on your next 2 fights, just like Manny did, right? Or if you are the biggest draw in North America, like Canelo Alvarez, well, you don't even need that.
1 fight.
Yep.
Right.
So is Terrence Crawford anywhere near that realm of his level of attraction?
Absolutely not, Joe. And that's why he's a free agent and nobody's kicking down his door to sign him.
Guys, that's why he's not going to get those fights unless he gives at least 2 good years committed to Al Haymon, which is 4 fights. That's why I mentioned 4 fights. Because once again, he's not a big attraction and a big draw, and it has to be worth it to Al Haymon in terms of making those round-robin fights at 147 fighting fighting Errol Spence, fighting Keith Thurman, fighting Yordeñas Ugas, right?
Right.
He's got to, it has to be monetarily, financially worth it in order for Al Heyman to commit to giving Bud Crawford those fights. And that's the reality, guys. Once again, because he's not a huge attraction, that's a huge deterrent in making these fights a reality. Looks like we're 95 minutes in, Young Bill. Very quickly, we don't have time to really get into it at this time, but make a prediction, sir. Once again, I'm going to announce this very quickly. According to Baco Varicel of the WBO, he stated this yesterday. He said, quote, "The WBO cannot wait any longer on whether or not D'Mitrius Andrade will face the number one super middleweight in the WBO, Zach Parker, for the interim 168-pound WBO title. Therefore, Andrade Janibek purse will take place at the WBO office January 14th in Puerto Rico at noon." Okay, woo! So if you had to guess, what do you think D'Mitrius Andrade is going to do? You think he's going to go through with the Janibek Ali Manala fight? Or is he going to ditch the title and move up to fight Zach Parker for the interim WBO 168-pound title, sir? Because they're both very difficult fights.
Joe, I believe he's going to lean towards fighting Janibek, Joe.
You know what, brother? I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Do you think Janibek, though, is a more winnable fight than Zach Parker?
Joe, they're pretty similar in as far as the style matchup. You know, you got a guy like Janibek who had an extreme amateur pedigree, southpaw, effective aggressor, skilled. So when you look at the Janibek fight, it's difficult. Both of these fights are difficult for D'Mitrius Andrade, but I think he's looking at it. If I were to take the Janibek fight, I would get a lot more credit if I was to beat this monster and Janibek from a lot of hardcore fans than if I was to go and up at 168. Not saying that Parker's not a tough opponent as well, but I do think he'll get more respect if he was to keep his belt, drop it after the Janibek fight, and still fight Parker. Because it's hard to get. I mean, Andrade is having trouble getting fights. So why give up your belt right now when this is a fight, undefeated guy, one of the best fights you can have right now, and take it and beat him. That's what champions do, defend their belt. And I think he should defend it, Joe.
Well, it's very hard to disagree with you, brother. And see, here's why it's kind of a toss-up in my opinion. Because either way, this fight's going to be on ESPN, right? Zach Parker's with Queensbury and Frank Warren. Janibek is currently being promoted by Top Rank and Bob Arum. So either way, you're looking at D'Mitrius Andrade fighting on the mainstream ESPN platform and them taking care of his purse. And you know what? The fact that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Sport doesn't have to pay for his inflated purse, I'm sure Eddie's all broken up about that, isn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He gets to lose his ass. Go send him off to ESPN. I don't have to pay anything, and I get 20% for promoting him without having to lift a finger. Go ahead, take that headache, Bob.
And a primetime slot on the biggest sports channel in America, ESPN.
And like you said, Joe, beating a Janibek or beating Parker on ESPN would do wonders for Andrade. More eyeballs, more visibility.
That's right. If he beats either one of those tough outings, tough pieces of meat decisively, guess what? The real bosses of boxing start clamoring for D'Mitrius Andrade to finally get his druthers and take on Canelo Alvarez later on this year or next year. Yep.
Right.
So that's going to just about do it. Want to thank all of you guys for joining us. Snoop C, What About Me, Rodney Evans. We want to thank, while we were suffering technical difficulties, we want to give a huge shout out and a big, big thank you Want to give a huge shout out to IOTBA and also the Boxing Historian for joining us and being a big part of the program. What About Me says, sorry, guys, I've been stalling, taking my dog out for an hour, so got to go. Great show. Catch you later. Thank you, sir. Happy Friday and have a great weekend. That's going to just about do it. Young Bill, would you feel like answering one more question, sir? Laurent says this, Young Bill. Who can Andrade fight after Janibek since Triple G and Charlo won't fight him?
Parker. Parker will still be there, Joe.
And that's it. That's it, brother. God bless you guys. Snoop C says Joseph Heron, a real boxing journalist, giving the gems of the sport exposure. Snoop C, God bless you, brother. Thank you for always supporting the program. We wouldn't be War Week Radio without our extended family. Thank you so much for joining us. All of you guys have a great weekend. Young Bill, any parting shots for our listening audience, sir?
Thank you guys for listening. Sorry about the technical difficulties, and we won't have any issues ever again. Thank you, Joe. Awesome show, man. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend. And yeah, take charge. Bosses of boxing. We're the bosses of boxing. Fight fans rule it.
Very well said, Young Bill. And thank you for all of your insight. And thank you for, once again, the exclusive on Ronnie Shields and his future with potentially with Anthony Joshua. And if you missed that part of it, guys, all the reason to go back and take it, get it from the beginning. Once again, you can listen to it from the very beginning as soon as we sign off. But on behalf of Young Billionaire, I'm Joseph Heron. You've been listening to War Week Radio Network. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Everybody to the Wild Wild West, a state that's untouchable like Elliot Ness. The track hits your eardrum like a slug to your chest. Like a vest for your Jimmy in the city of sex. We in that sunshine state where the bomb ass him be. The state where you never find a dance floor empty and pimp speed. On a mission for them greens. Lean, mean, money making machines serving fiends.
FightSaga.com presents WAWR Week Radio chats with boxing scribe Joseph Heron and former prizefighter Young Billionaire.